let's talk a little bit about what we're getting into today. So today we're going to watch some of the happenings of the Libertarian Party of Florida. I want to do more content that's focused on what's happening here in Florida and the different drama bits and all the kind of stuff. We are a bigger state, but more importantly, I live here, so these are the things I care about. If you're wondering why my internet sucks, there you go. I was running a test. So Liberty Dad, DL Cummings here, has done quite a few interviews recently with various candidates for the LPF. And these are people who have declared themselves to be candidates at the upcoming convention, and they're running for a bunch of different offices. So what I want to do today is go through them and listen to the interview, because so far, everyone that he's interviewed is somebody that I would endorse, just knowing them and all of that. So I need to pull this off of this screen because I need to post something. But yeah, so all these people are people that I would endorse and people that I'm supporting myself, and the caucus is considering supporting or is already supporting. So I am looking here. I'm sharing this stream so that I'm not only talking to myself. Copy this, grab it here, and put it there. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. I need to be doing more for our stream that we're putting together here. Anyway, we're gonna be reviewing some of the Dad's latest interviews. We're gonna start with the oldest one that I could find, which is Rich Perez, and you guys know Rich from the swamp. But Rich is running for treasurer, so he's not only one that talks a lot of shit. Oh, you can see here 8 months ago when he interviewed Josh. One day we may interview that just for funds. This one kind of important to us, the LNC one with Angela. I believe this was done at the hotel of the convention, but I could be wrong about that. But we'll see. I want to go back and look at some of these. DL's the guy that does all these interviews. So if you want to run for an office in the Libertarian Party or just in the state of Florida generally, he's probably going to talk to, and he's like one of the more level-headed guys. I mean, you could see that in the show we did with him on the swamp. He's one of the more reasonable people. He's not a wild person like us. Now, I may have to step away for a moment, and when that happens, I don't know what I'll be doing, but I might have to step away for a moment because I do have some work to do today. My work laptop's over there, so we'll address that when it comes up. But right now, let's go ahead and start the Rich Perez interview, and I'll turn this music down. We're probably going to turn it off, but I don't know. Yeah, let's turn it off. Let's give Rich the full attention that he deserves on his first appearance here. All right, so we'll get right into the show open. There we go. That works. I'll take it. Can I move myself somewhere? Oh, shit. Don't want that. All right. Let's see. Oh, DL's audio is not working. It was working there for a second.
Let's see. There we go.
There we go.
Welcome to the episode 89 of the Liberty Dad podcast, where we prepare for tomorrow's political conversation by how we engage today. This episode, I interview Richard Perez for treasurer of the Libertarian Party of Florida. These interviews are intended to be tough. And by tough,
Good.
I don't mean hostile. But
you should be hostile, DL.
I
want to see DL get hostile.
Why would I do that? I feel interviews are simply either too soft or too hostile too often. They focus on what...
So I can tell you that Rich was a little nervous going into this, but so was Josh when we went into his interview. They were both a little nervous because they haven't held major party offices or anything like that, especially Josh being the vice chair. He was a little nervous before his interview. And I know Rich was nervous about the idea about running for treasurer. But let's see how tough it actually gets.
we like or dislike about a person rather than whether they can communicate their fitness for a role.
Sure.
Dale Carnegie once said, "There are always 3 speeches for every one you actually gave. The one you practiced, the one you gave, and the one you wish you gave." Anyway, interviews are very similar. There's the one you prepared,
you think he writes
for,
a
the
script?
one you gave, and the one you wish you gave. Once
I don't know.
I had a
he's pretty well
interview
spoken
with
anyway.
people. As I left, I was feeling like I missed the mark on a few answers. And
Sure.
then as I drove away, it all caught up, and I realized
He got the pro.
I
got the
missed
regular
mark on some
Yeti,
questions.
but he's got the pro
I
one.
immediately pulled over, pulled out my phone,
Fancy
and
man.
punched out better responses to every question.
And he's
I could
wearing a
recall.
suit, this fucking
Sent
guy.
that email and hoped for the best. I didn't get the job. However,
Nerd.
the next interview, I nailed it. These
Good.
interviews are intended to be tough so that each candidate later says to themselves, "Man, I should have said this." But a word of caution.
Okay.
Just because someone doesn't have an answer or gives what you might think of as an underwhelming answer, it does not necessarily mean that they are not the right fit for the job.
Yeah, I
It
agree
just
with
means
that.
that they weren't prepared
Interviews
to
can
answer
be
that
tough.
question at this time, and hopefully the next time that they are asked, they will be. The goal isn't to embarrass people or to give them
Got
such
'em.
a tough interview
You gotta get
that
'em.
it leads
You gotta
people
get
to
'em,
believe
DL.
they are not ready
People
for
want
that role.
hype.
It's simply to raise the bar with our expectations of
Raise the
leadership
bar, but
and
make it
how we
entertaining.
interview, starting with communication. With that, let's dive right in and hear what Richard has to say. Hello,
There
Richard.
he is.
How are you?
You can't see his full flag. It's
Good. How are you doing today, DL?
dick.
I'm doing very well. Let me pull up the, make sure that nobody's in the chat saying they can't hear us. I think we're good to go.
Yeah,
All
buddy.
right. Let's see. All right. I'm just going to glance every now and then at the chat, people. So if something's up, please let me know.
My
But
microphone's gonna
otherwise,
fall
we'll
over
do our
again.
best to see how things go. All right. So let's get into this. Let's talk right away. Let's go ahead and start with introducing yourself. So
Hi,
tell
my
us,
name is Rich
who
Perez,
is
running
Richard
for treasurer.
Perez? Tell us whatever you want. Go for it.
All right. So I
What are you
I mean,
drinking, Rich?
we're
That's
talking
a more
about the
comfortable
Libertarian Party,
question.
so I'll try to keep it, pertinent to that.
Sure.
I was born and raised in New Jersey. Lived there all my life.
Florida natives
right up
only.
until
Get out,
my,
son.
mid to late teens.
If we did that, we'd have, like,
my parents
no
got divorced, and I
candidates.
kind of bounced back and forth from Puerto Rico to New Jersey. Lived a little bit of time in New York.
Oh, I'm gonna break this thing so bad.
Growing up, my perception of things were from a view seen through, the politics of New Jersey, New York, very restricted.
And Florida looks like a paradise.
In my experience, if you had a gun, you were a bad guy or you were a cop.
Okay.
That's kind of funny now, knowing Rich. Rich is like the gun guy, one of the gun guys, one of the few. But yeah, that's kind of funny.
What I mean,
So kind of the
I
same.
moved down. Sometimes the same, absolutely. A lot of times the same, unfortunately.
Right.
But I moved down to Florida, and I started getting to firearms in my late 20s.
Mhm.
And at that point, thanks to a few friends that taught me a few things about economics, that
I'm sorry, I'm trying to boost the see if it freaking breaks the damn thing. I went up 100p. Let's see. What is all this? What is this bullpucky over
that was
here?
right around the
What is it?
time of the second Ron Paul campaign.
Okay.
I started learning about economics. I started learning about the Federal Reserve, how
Okay.
essentially we're indebted to what's a private bank that's really in the it's private, but it's not private really because it works with the government.
Mhm.
And I apologize if you hear my dogs barking in the background. I'm trying to keep
Get all these like
That's all right,
Russian
man.
bots.
Hey, you know what?
coming
Everybody
into our
that watches
chat.
this show knows that sometimes they'll hear my son. He's actually taking a nap right behind me in the room.
That's what my daughter's doing right now.
Room next
Good timing.
door. So he might wake up during the interview, and and sometimes he comes in. Now I have the door locked this time because I'm not on
Got
duty,
him.
but it happens, man. So no big deal. No
good.
mark against you there.
So long story short, I started learning a few, basic ideas of economics, nothing
Sure.
heavy, no Austrian economics or anything like that.
Can we get to the meat?
I started learning
Oh,
about
this
guns,
introduce yourself
and that
goes
kinda
on for a
started
while,
opening
dude.
my eyes
All right.
to realize that
Current.
I was never
Fundraising
identified
current
with Democrats. I never truly
treasurer
identified with
candidate.
Republicans.
Well, that's the
even though I
juice
was
right
a little
there.
more right leaning thanks to the economics and
And then he
thanks
goes in and
to,
talks about
the
leadership
gun
a little
issues.
bit.
The Republicans are the fiscally responsible party.
All
We
right.
all know they're not.
Right.
They claim to be, and they claim to be for gun rights. We all know they're not.
Yeah.
But I never really truly identified with them. And one of the first voices that got me a little more into seeing things,
Dave Smith, Tom Woods,
identifying
Ron
as
Paul.
libertarian, was Maj Toure.
Oh, okay.
I
got it
always
wrong.
heard libertarian, and I was kind of like,
I was just making a safe bet.
That kind of describes me, but I was never really big into politics.
Right.
Yeah.
Right around the time of 2016, I started getting a little bit more into the politics. Following a few more people, and it was at that point I was a single issue voter. And it was all about guns for me.
Gotcha.
If you're trying to take my guns, you're a tyrant.
Okay.
That's how I
sounds legit.
What a flip.
Right.
That's a big twist.
And over the past few, Donald Trump presidency happened. I mean, what a shit show. I apologize for the language. Sorry.
It's all right. We'll be all right.
We'll be fine.
I know we got to 2020 and, absolutely it completely hit the fan.
Okay.
We all know, 2021. No, 2020 was the first year of COVID.
I know it
such a
merges
blur now.
all together. You're like, I don't know. Has it been like 5 years or 2 or a month? I don't know. They said 2 weeks, and I feel like I got gray hair since then. I feel
like we got to watch this a little bit faster.
Right.
But yeah, it's definitely been the longest 2 weeks of anybody's life.
There we go.
So that really opened my eyes and
make him sound smarter if he talks
faster.
faster.
I had absolutely zero trust in the government.
Okay.
And I didn't like anything I was seeing from any side of the political spectrum.
Right.
And
sure.
Our last presidential campaign, unfortunately, was somewhat underwhelming. Granted, the mainstream media portrayed it as, this is you either have to vote left or you have to vote right, which we know that's what they do.
Right.
But they've been radicalizing everybody, and I was radicalized to one end where I just completely lost complete faith in any sort of government. I would have related probably as a minarchist before the 2020 election, whereas at this point, I can't relate as anything but an anarchist. I can't think of a single thing that the government can do that the private sector can't do better.
Gotcha. Now let me interrupt you real quick. So we have some. I have some I have some followers and some listeners I believe aren't necessarily in the Libertarian Party. Now, this interview may not be terribly exciting for them because they won't know a lot of this stuff. But going on what you just said,
Richard Perez. Look at you impersonating my boy.
That may be slightly unfamiliar with the term. Can you just kind of break it down in a few sentences with the differences?
Yeah, absolutely. So minarchists, they believe that the government should be in charge of just basic few things, national security, maybe some public health things, roads, small things like that, but absolute minimal government, no government
state, as it's been called.
Florida deals with Florida, New York deals with New York, we're only related because we're all part of the same country, but that's it. Their government does what they want over there. We do what we want over here. If there is to be a federal government, it's strictly existing just to prevent, the smaller governments from infringing on their people's rights.
Right. Okay.
Anarchism is just no government, self-governance.
See,
doesn't necessarily mean
I can't wait to debate somebody on anarchism
we can
about
still,
this.
within my neighborhood, within our city.
I don't think he would phrase that properly. I think if you pressed him on it, he would say that there is still a governing structure in the in anarchism or in an anarchist society, and I think any anarchist would admit that. And so it's not no government. So I think maybe he would rephrase that, but yeah, whatever.
We agree that you're not supposed to do certain things, and that's where the non-aggression principle comes in handy, as a baseline. And I feel like there's
the introduction's going on for a minute.
I
feel like we know
the whole non-aggression principle.
Right.
It's always been around. Like for example, in the 10 Commandments, a lot of that could be boiled down to the non-aggression principle.
Okay.
But I feel like that's always been human nature. That if we need to establish some ground rules. Don't aggress on each other. Don't be the initiator of violence on your fellow man. And that's what it boils down to.
All right, awesome. I appreciate that. And so let's get into it here. There we are. I'm trying to shift my screens a little bit. Trying to be fancy. When you're fancy, you got a lot more work to do, and it's really tough. At any rate, let's get right into the meat of the interview. So you are currently the Region 2 rep, and then you're also a member on the Fundraising Committee. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, awesome. So let's start with the Region 2 rep role. First and foremost,
here we
go ahead and describe what this role entails. You don't have to be super duper in depth. Just kind of give an overview of what this role entails.
Yeah. What do you think Region reps do, Rich?
Region 2 is it's a small region. It's not really small. There's just not a lot of activity in it because unfortunately it's a very isolated region in the Florida Panhandle.
Right.
We have an affiliate in Bay County that is more and more active every day, and I've been focusing on them. When I first took on the role, I was traveling for work. I was working across the entire state. Literally, my territory was from Pensacola down to Key Largo. So, I mean, the only place I didn't visit across the entire state was Key West. But I was able to travel up there a little more often, and so I focused on them, trying to get them a little more organized, get them to grow. I had a lot of help from the current treasurer, Patrick Leisner, who, you know, I worked hand in hand with. So thanks a lot to Patrick. Thanks a lot to Joey up there, who's now the chair, and David. They were in very open communication, letting me know what was going on.
He just named like the core of the Bay County affiliate, like Pat, Dave, and Joey. Like those are, if you were in Bay County, if you want to get involved with the LP, those are the people to talk to, not though.
You know, when they needed something from the EC, I would help them out. The role, so to break it down, the role
there
of
we go.
Region rep is to help affiliate the counties that are there in that region and to assist anything that they need once it's affiliated.
Okay.
So
fair.
unfortunately, we'll get any other counties affiliated.
I would say it goes a little bit further than that. Helping to affiliate the counties is one thing, and then, like he said, once they are affiliated, to make sure that they not only get the assistance they need, but to know what assistance and what tools are available to them, because the LPF has a lot of resources that people just don't utilize, either because they don't know about it or like their region rep doesn't know about it. Like there's a big information gap, a big education problem with the membership of the LPF and what the LPF can actually do for them. Like providing data is like a very simple thing, and you could go out and get it yourself, but there's people in the LPF that can put that data together for you and give you better data. People who not only looking at the publicly available voter data, but looking at people who have signed up to be members in the particular counties, or people who donate to the LPF, or people who donate to the LNC through the Civi CRM, or, you know, that sort of data. And then beyond that, like what people really want from the LPF is funding and events, and funding for events usually. And a lot of people in the LPF don't know that you can get those things from the LPF, but you have to ask, because the LPF doesn't do a good job of advertising those things to the affiliates. And it's really unfortunate, because there's, you know, a lot of resources at the LPF that go unused, and I think that creates a lot of burnout too. But that's a subject for later, I guess. Oh, what did I just do?
Shortly after I took on the role, I took on a new job, which moved me even further south, and I haven't really been able to go up there and be a little more active. But I did have the pleasure of attending one meetup up there with the Bay County guys.
Gotcha. Okay, so let me ask you then, because I know there's 8 counties that are up there in Region 2, Bay, Holmes, Washington, Jackson, Calhoun, Gulf, Liberty.
You haven't put any of them on the map. What's your problem? That's my question. Go.
Franklin. So the other 7, you know, what is the issue? Why can you explain why there aren't any affiliates there? Right. Yeah, that's how I want to say it. There aren't any affiliates.
So I don't, not to make excuses or anything like that.
He's going to make an excuse, and we're not going to let him get away with it. Rich, you're doing a terrible job.
When I first took on the role, I got the voter rolls for all the registered libertarians across all the counties. And I knew Bay was affiliated, so I said, let me look at all the other ones first. And the one that stood out, Liberty County, which, you know, oddly enough,
is it 3 or 4 people? Let's see.
It's named Liberty County. It's yeah, you know, libertarian. That sounds awesome. You go to Liberty County, there's 4 registered libertarians.
4, baby.
In the county.
In the
so
entire
I looked at the
county.
other counties, and, you know, some were a little more promising. There was 60, you know, 70 here, 20 there. So I was like, okay.
But even those numbers are pretty shit. Like Polk County is probably, I think it ranks as like the top 10 in terms of population, but even our county has like over a residents or some shit. Or is it? Yeah, I think it's over 1 million. I don't know. Yeah, sure. Can you bring a beer too? Love you. All right. So even Polk County, it ranks one of the larger ones, but even us, we only have like 1,300 candidates or something like that. And so yeah, like having 60 or 70 might sound like, oh, you can get 3 or 4 people really easily. Well, not really. Like we have 1,300 and we have a hard time getting 10 people to show up sometimes.
This is a little bit better. And then you look at Bay County, which, it's not the most active affiliate, but they're getting a little more active. They got a little more motion going on. Again, thanks to those guys that I mentioned earlier. They're doing a lot of good work up there. But Bay County had 600 registered libertarians.
Okay.
See, and that's what I mean. Like 60 or 70 sounds like a lot, but Pat like works his ass off up there. And I don't know what their numbers are like now, but like, yeah, like 600 or 700 is so sparsely populated.
It seems like they just haven't had enough outreach into those counties.
Okay.
Which unfortunately I haven't been able to really push as much because, like I said, I took on a new job, and at that point it was kind of just a support role from down here on the south side of
Yeah, and that's the other thing too. Like this is what I was talking about before with the LPF. They have a lot of resources that aren't utilized. Like that's the outreach effort. This is a problem with the entire state affiliate, and it's just that we don't go up there. Like we don't do a lot of outreach up there. We don't do a lot of events generally, but particularly in these places where, like, Liberty County should not have 4 registered libertarians. Like that should not be the reality of the situation, but it is. And I think a large part of that has to do with because we don't even make an effort to go outside of, Central and Southern Florida. Like those 2 areas are where the majority of activity happens. Southern Florida happens because you have Miami and you have the Broward County affiliate, which is probably the largest affiliate in the state. And they're super active. They're always doing stuff. And then all the conventions and all of the major events are usually held around I-4, around the middle of the state. And so because of all of that, like the northern part of the state where we have the least amount of libertarians is kind of unsurprising. And like there's anomalies, of course, like D.L. Cummings himself is an anomaly for the northern part of the state because he's actually got some activity going there. And it's all due to him and the people there at that affiliate. I mean, but as far as like the LPF taking responsibility for that, like, I don't know. I feel like they could do more and they should do more. And yeah, I'll leave it there for now.
Of the state.
Gotcha. Okay. So I get that you got a new role or a new job, and I hate the idea of us, any of us, not just you or anybody. And I know you're not saying this necessarily, but I hate the idea of, well, I'm a volunteer, because I look at it and I say, hey, if you've taken on a role, you need to deliver something, right?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it doesn't mean that, like, hey, if you don't knock it out of the park, well, you were a terrible person for that particular role. It just means like, hey, we should hold the standard up high. So my next question here on that, because what you're aiming for, you're aiming to go to state treasurer, which I assume means you would tend to leave the Region 2 representative role, because I don't think you can.
You cannot serve as both.
Right. So how are you? Bay County is currently the only one that's affiliated. So how are you leaving Bay County better off than when you first got there?
Oh, dude.
So
Pat,
the people that are in
Pat,
charge
100%.
now, a little more active.
Okay.
We've worked out a few events where we've also involved the neighboring counties.
Yeah.
And that's a way that I've tried to bring them into the fold.
I don't know if he's going to bring it up or not, but I'll predict that he's going to be smart enough to bring it up, but we'll see. But how's he leaving the affiliate better off? Because he's like part of the deal here. For those that don't know, Rich is currently the Region 2 rep, and Patrick, who is our current treasurer, thank you. And Patrick, who's our current treasurer, he lives in Bay County in Region 2, and Patrick wants to have more focus. He doesn't want to focus on the state stuff as much. He would much rather be focused locally in Bay County and his region. So them switching roles, assuming that they can, like Patrick's treasurer, right? Region rep, I was told, region rep is an entry-level position, right? So Patrick, theoretically, should have no problem transitioning to a region rep. Rich would become the treasurer, which is a little bit tougher of a spot because now you're an officer, you're signing your name to all these legal documents and things. It's a little bit of a promotion, let's say. But how is he going to leave Region 2 better off? By putting Patrick in charge.
Mhm.
Is
I don't know,
by
we'll see.
outreach into those counties to try to get them involved with the Bay County so they can see what it can be like.
Gotcha.
Because part of the problem, I think, is
Oh, he said it. He said the name.
you need 3 people to be affiliated to have an official affiliate of your county.
Right.
You need a chair, you need a vice chair, and you need a secretary and treasurer, who the secretary and treasurer can be the same person.
Right.
It's a lot of work.
So
for
at a
one
minimum, you
person.
need 3 people.
Okay.
And I feel like there's
Let's
a
up it to
bit of an
5.
issue with region reps just saying, okay, let's get these 3 people, let's get you guys affiliated. And then they affiliate a county, and then they kind of leave them out to dry. They hang them out to dry where they don't get a ton of support. They don't know what they're supposed to be doing. They don't know what they should be doing. So, the groundwork I wanted to lay was just to get people active, see what an active affiliate looks like, so that the next Region 2 representative, which hopefully, Patrick Leisner, who's our current treasurer and who's been, my main contact in the region, he's going to be running for Region 2 representative. We're basically going to be switching roles.
I gotcha.
And
Cool.
I'm
He brought it
that,
up.
it leaves him in a little bit of a better position to, get those people a little more active. And as they're getting more active, work into, getting those counties affiliated.
Credit to him for bringing that up because it's very important.
Gotcha. Awesome. Yeah, I see he's in the chat here watching, and I'm a little on the older side, so I'm not sure if I'm seeing this right, but I think he said to give you hell.
There we go.
I could be misreading that.
Get
I'm
him.
not sure, but
Come on, Pat.
I wouldn't expect anything less.
That's right.
All right, awesome. So let's talk about the fundraising committee. So you're a member there, and
Yes.
what we all know what fundraising is, getting money, right? But
Absolutely.
there's usually a more specific goal. So what was the goal of this committee for this last term?
Tough to say. I mean, it's always like you said, at the end of the day, it's, raise more funds.
Right.
One of the things that I know was a project that was before my time on the fundraising committee.
Okay.
But it's something we happened while I was on the fundraising. Not that I'm trying to take any sort of credit for this. But something that the committee was able to do was we this year we started an actual contractor who works for the LPF, is paid by the LPF, and they're paid specifically to help with a fundraising committee. It's development director, I believe, is the official title.
Okay.
But they work part-time to push
Talking about Celicio.
to push for the fundraising. Making phone calls, getting old donors back onto the donor rolls, planning events, that type of thing. We also came very close, and we think that it's going to happen soon enough. But we want a specific event planner for the LPF, and that's something else that we're pushing for, and hopefully in this next term.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. I spoke with Nikayla about the same thing. We need to have somebody who's dedicated to putting on events for the LPF. And if Rich is in support of that, that's a good point towards a vote, if you ask me. Of course I'm going to vote for Rich. But
so that we can start hosting regular events all across the state, from Jacksonville to Pensacola down to Miami, down to the Keys.
If we made that slightest change, if we just had more focus on events that were sponsored, hosted, and put together by the LPF and were promoted that way, and all these things, you have no idea how much of a difference that would make. I did an event, and 9 times out of 10, nobody knew who the Libertarian Party was, what we stood for, or any of that stuff. And the most jarring thing that happened is we tried to go to a gun show, and they're like, "Oh, we don't know if we want you guys here because we don't want any trouble. We don't want people here who are anti-gun." It's like, we are more pro-gun than the NRA and anyone else, any other the Republican Party, or damn near any gun rights activist group you could find. But they didn't know that because we don't do anything, because we don't put our name out there. We don't participate in these events. And it's a huge problem. If we did this one thing, and it would cost some money. Yeah, it would cost some time. It would take some effort. But if we did that one thing, the gains would be exponentially beneficial.
Orlando, Tampa, hit all the big cities, and get people in the fold, get them involved, and let them realize that there are people out there that think the same way that they do, that want freedom, and we're all here to work together. We're all here to to make a better future, and have a good time while we're doing it.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Even just because we're working doesn't mean we can't have a little fun and enjoy it a little bit, right?
Absolutely.
All right. So my next question is, so it seems like this committee was basically kind of continuing on the work of the prior committee. And so what role did you play during this term? Like how did you assist, the the continuation of, wasn't that the 25 by 100 or something like that? Was that what they were
Oh
doing?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they're talking about
125
fundraising right
is
now.
our current
Yeah.
push. We're our goal is to get 100 people who are donating at least $25 a month.
Right.
Which doesn't seem like a lot, but our state does not allow political parties to charge membership dues.
Right.
A lot of other states do, and their coffers are regularly filled because of this.
Gotcha.
So they're in better positions financially because they do require people to be a dues-paying membership in order to be a delegate, in order to have a voice in the party, things like that. We don't, so we need to we need to rely on everybody's goodwills. So 100 at 25, there's a few things to that. Depending on how much you donated, whether it was just a basic $25 or whether you were a little bit higher, everything from membership pins to extra perks. We even had a few speeches given by big name libertarians such as Larry Sharp. Spike Cohen came on and gave one, our last vice presidential nominee. So a couple of things, couple of cool perks, and we're planning on expanding on that program. And obviously everything's got to evolve. You can't keep the same thing,
right?
And expect it to continue giving you higher and higher results. You need to make things evolve in order for them to get better.
Right. So back to my question. What was your role in all that this last term?
So
oh no, I hit the wrong button. Fuck. No. Well, I wanted to say something.
Donating at least $25 a month that program, and obviously everything's got to evolve. You can't keep the same thing,
right?
And expect it to continue giving you higher and higher results. You need to make evolve in order for them to get better.
So let me give my perspective on the 25 at 100 or 100 at 25 club that they do there. I like it. It's a good promotional thing. It's like a simple thing. I mean, $25 is less than $1 a day, all that kind of stuff. I don't participate in the 25 at 100 club or 100 at 25 club, whatever it is. I don't participate in it because I don't like giving regular donations to something like I already give a regular donation to Polk County, right? I don't give a regular donation to the Mises Caucus National, to the Florida Mises Caucus, or to the state party or any of that kind of stuff, because I feel like I have less control over that money. And when I got the fundraising call about, hey, you should donate, you should become a part of this program, all this stuff, I think what they offer is good. And they try to make it as appealing as possible by having like these private chats and having these interviews or these presentations by these prominent people. And from what I hear, there's valuable information in there, and it's a lot of fun for people to do. But for me personally, I don't look at that as something like, I don't know, especially the way the EC has been lately. Lately it's in lame duck, right? So they're not really doing much of anything as a natural course of things because it's getting ready to be changed. And like in 2 weeks, we're going to vote on the new EC. But prior to that, there's just like 5-hour long conversation, like debating something simple or something stupid and whether or not we're going to spend money somewhere because we don't know if we're going to get Rich will tell you there's a famous thing. We were trying to do the Solutionary Summit. We were trying to go down there, and the resistance to it was that we typically don't do well with those communities, so we shouldn't even bother showing up. Like when that's the kind of stuff that the majority of the EC, it's not the majority anymore, but at that time it was, when that's the perspective that the EC has towards spending funds or whatever. And really, I think it's just the LPF is afraid to spend money because they have more money than they've ever had before in the past. Somebody told me that we raised over $24,000 so far just for the convention this year. Like, to give you an idea, like our, like, I think last year we might have raised 10 grand for the whole thing. And like, we're already 24,000 and we haven't even had the convention yet. And there's always fundraisers there at the convention. Stuff gets auctioned off or whatever. We infamously bought a $500 bottle of bourbon for the Mises Caucus with that at one of those fundraising events. So stuff like this happens. But I don't want to give my money especially a regular donation that I'm honestly going to forget about, just so that it can sit in a bank somewhere. And what I told Celicia when she called me about the fundraising stuff, I said, look, I'm happy to donate, but I'm not going to donate on a recurring basis for nothing. Like, I need to know where my money's going. And from my perspective, it's just going to sit in the bank. And although, the caucus has a better presence on the EC and we have a little more sway, especially now, as to where those things, where that money's spent, where those things are going, I would be more comfortable donating to specific projects. So if there's a particular project that the LPF is working on that they want to raise money for, I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to support that. But if I'm going to make a recurring donation in the background, I would rather spend that money at my local affiliate. I would rather spend that money through the Mises Caucus, where I know that money is going to be effective. I'm very much against the LP National and the LNC giving them regular money. I give them the $25 a year because, what am I doing? Covering someone else's transaction fee? I'm really not. But and that's required, like, to be an LNC member or a dues paying member of the LP or the LNC to be able to participate in those votes and those conversations or whatever. But outside of that, I don't want to give them any more money than I have to. And I look at the LPF the same way. But that could be changed. And what I need to see from the LPF for that to happen isn't that they need to offer more perks as far as like joining the program. What they need is for the LPF to become an effective institution. And then I'll be okay with it.
Right. So back to my question, what was your role in all that this last term?
So there weren't specific roles in the fundraising committee. I was kind of an ideas guy. I would, hop on the meetings. We would discuss, what was going on. I'd throw a few ideas out there. And I've always been the type that, hey, you need me to do this? Okay, cool. I'll jump on this. You need me to do that? Okay, cool. I'll jump on that. We had a holiday party, that I helped out with some of the planning.
The holiday party was pretty successful.
For, the things going on within that holiday party.
Great example of events we should do.
Okay, gotcha. So now let's kind of wrap it up on those two roles. So you can choose from either one to answer these next couple questions, right? So what regrets do you have as you look back over the time that you spent in either role, either the Region 2 rep or as a committee member? Like when you look back and you're like, I could have done better, or I shouldn't have done that, or what have you.
So this is I just got involved with politics. Actually, being
this might come up later, but I think one of my biggest letdowns or biggest regrets or whatever is that we didn't push as aggressively as we should have towards the things that we wanted, and the communication could have been better to not have such lengthy debate over the minutia of what's going on. But I don't know. That would be my answer. But I don't know what Rich himself regrets. So let's find out.
Actively involved towards the beginning of last year. So I am very inexperienced in everything that I do, and I've kind of just jumped in, the deep end and figured it out as I've gone along.
Right.
So in Region 2, I wish I could have spent more time up there. Had I known that I wasn't going to be able to travel up there as much as I was doing at the beginning, the first 2 months, I probably would have scheduled myself to be up there a little bit more often, just so that I did want to host some events in some of the neighboring counties, even if it was mostly Bay County members attending. I did want to throw at least 2 or 3 events in some of them that we never had a chance to do. As far as fundraising, not so much regrets. I definitely feel like I could have, maybe helped out a little bit more as far as, volunteering time with some of the events. But unfortunately, my schedule was a little bit hectic, especially towards the end of the year. And I just wasn't able to be in there as often as I would have liked to be.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So let me ask then, is there any particular reason that you didn't say, hey, maybe I should resign from one so that I can give better attention to the other? Or were your teammates happy enough with whatever you were able to give?
I believe they were happy enough with what I was able to give.
He took the easy answer.
Anybody would have wanted me to resign. There was no discussion.
Interview tip. DL Cummings, if you're asking someone a tough question and you want to kind of put them on the spot and make them squirm, don't give them an easy answer. So that question right there that he asked him, he's like, what do you regret? What do you think could have been done differently? Do you think you should have stepped down from those positions? Or do you think that you were contributing enough? You gave him the answer. Don't give him the answer. Just a tip for tougher questions in the future.
Question to that, any talk of that. And it was November and December were extremely hectic for me in my personal life.
Right.
So again, I wasn't able to be as active, but I was still in communications with everybody. I was still attending the meetings, jumping in and giving my 2 cents and just, helping out where I could.
Gotcha.
But yeah, everybody's very understanding. Those guys up in Bay County and everybody on the fundraising committee, we were in communication. They knew what was going on for the most part. So,
and that's another thing that, my, I don't know if this would be my answer, but this is another consideration that, okay, if you had to drop one, drop the fundraising committee. But if your main role there is to be an ideas guy and to give your perspective or your opinion on things, and you're not really coordinating a lot of the activity like Hector or Celicia might be, then it makes sense that you can still be a member of the committee and not really, like, I'll tell you, I ran a committee. There were some people that didn't put in any effort at all, and some people that put minimal effort, and some people that said they wanted to help and then just never showed up to help. So being a member of a committee doesn't really come with a lot of the same constraints. I agree with DL that if you're going to take on responsibility, you need to fulfill that responsibility. But the point is, if you were going to drop one, that would be the one to drop, because dropping Region 2 is more difficult than it sounds, because right now, or the way it stood, is Rich was representing Region 2. If Rich were to step down, there are other people in Bay County, but not many who are interested in being the region rep. And so at that point, what happens when a member drops off of the region roles, if they stop being a region rep, what ends up happening is the EC, typically at the next meeting, will have a vote on who the replacement is going to be. Now, usually region reps are decided at convention, and it's voted on by the members of that region in person. So last year, the year that Rich was elected, Rich ran for Region 2, and he was elected with one vote because Patrick was the only person there that could vote for him, and he did. And so it's not to say that there was no one else, or there is no one else that could do the job, but at the time, there was no one else. And then, so if he were to step down midterm, well, Patrick is still a treasurer, and you definitely don't want the treasurer to step down if you can avoid it. And so if Rich would have stepped down to focus more on fundraising or his own life or whatever, then Region 2 is without representation unless, and this happens, and it has happened, and I imagine it'll happen in the future, unless that seat is filled by a political appointee, somebody who doesn't necessarily live in the region, and somebody who doesn't necessarily have any interest in that region. So Patrick and Rich are both friends, and so Rich has a vested interest in Pat in his region doing well. If Rich were to step down, Pat can't run for that position without dropping his own. And if no one else at his affiliate or within his region is willing to do it, then you could end up with a political appointee who is really there because they want to have a vote or a say on the EC, not necessarily because they want to represent the region. And that is an issue of itself. So for those 2 months or whatever it was that Rich was having those issues, I think it was the right decision for him to stay in that position as long as he could. Like he said, he was able to attend meetings, and he was able to give his opinion and vote and give his perspective. And, Rich and I and all the other guys from the swamp and the caucus guys, we all talk all the time about all the various things going on. So it's not like he was out of the loop. He was just less active. But yeah, I think that was the right decision. And the cost of him stepping down could have been more costly. I don't know how you word that into an answer in an interview with DL, but I think there's more reality to that answer. I don't know, my perspective.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. What is your biggest achievement And you don't have to say for either. You can just your biggest achievement this last term that you're on a podcast now. This is your opportunity to toot your horn. So what is the thing that everybody should know? Like, wow, Richard did that. He built that, Biden. Or no, it was Obama. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was Obama. Get your jokes right.
I don't think there's a single thing that I can say during the term, I'm going to take credit for that.
Okay.
There was a lot of work from a lot of people, and a lot of, unfortunately for the region rep position, I kind of saw it as a supporting role.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of, I want to set Bay County up for success.
Right.
I think I did. I think that I helped them out. Those guys up there are all, very kind. They're all very friendly with me. So I think I did a good job with them.
Gotcha.
I think I left them off better than they were. And not to take credit for it, because in all reality, they're the ones there with the boots on the ground, putting in the work. And, again, mine was a support role.
Gotcha.
I'm used to, in my personal life, I'm a sales manager at a dealership, and I'm used to that kind of support role. But I wanted to take on a little bit more of a leadership role, and that's what led me to discussing it with Patrick, who's the current treasurer. I became the deputy treasurer during the term also.
Okay.
Yep.
And I've been helping out with treasury work, and that's what led me to say, yeah, you know what, I want to take on this challenge of being the treasurer.
Okay. It's a good segue into the treasurer role.
All right, so we get the treasurer role, but I think he hit the nail on the head for what his greatest achievement should be, and that was making sure that Bay County can be as successful as possible. And I've heard good reviews from other people in the county as well. I remember a few, maybe a month or two at the most, after the last convention, there was some questions about Bay County. They were having, Rules Committee was upset with them for not posting proper notice of their meetings and stuff, saying that they were having illegal meetings and all these kinds of things. And that was something that I was involved in early on. And Rich was, the key point of contact for the region. And then he went out to events. He helped organize some of their social events at a time that that Rich was elected, and we ended up getting involved in Bay County. At the time, the chair and I believe the treasurer, it was a husband and wife duo. They were looking for a break. They weren't looking to retire, but they didn't want to be in leadership roles anymore. And it was at a point where they weren't hosting meetings because they were worried, like they just didn't have time to do them, and they didn't want to just do the meetings to have the meetings. They wanted to show up if there was going to be a speaker or if they had something particular planned for that day. And those were the only things that were happening. And it wasn't until Patrick, Rich, myself got involved that we tried to push them more in the right direction and say, like, and press them really to say, if you don't want to hold meetings because you personally don't have time to do it right now, or you just want to take a break or whatever, that's fine. But you need to step out of the way and let somebody else do it. Let somebody else come in here and help out, because there's other people who are eager to help and they can't, because like another problem they were having is they couldn't have quorum because some of their EC members were not able to attend. And so that was another conversation that we had with the current leadership there was, you guys gotta, if you can't make the meetings, it's okay, but you gotta move out of the way. You gotta step aside so that other people can do that. And Rich played a vital role in making that happen by meeting with those people in person. Again, it's an isolated part of the state, like he said, and it's not an easy thing for any of us to just go up there and make that happen. But Rich made that happen. And so he deserves a lot of credit for the situation that the situation that Bay County is in right now, because he helped facilitate that transition and make it possible for them to operate effectively.
Because I was not aware that you were the deputy treasurer. So it sounds like, because you were saying that Patrick is looking to run for the Region 2 rep role, you're looking to run for the treasurer role. So you're kind of looking to swap with each other. So
yes.
It sounds like he's already brought you on, or the organization has brought you on board, and then you started working with him so that you could get a feel for what that role entails.
Yes.
And then did you do the same thing with him and say, like, all right, here's some of the things that are happening with Region 2 and some of the things
he
that
knows,
you need to know, or
and he's intimate.
pretty much already familiar with it?
So he was
Again, he's gonna quote you
Probably
verbatim.
more familiar with Region 2.
He's gonna quote you verbatim because you gave him the answer. But that is the right answer. Patrick is so intimately involved in trying to recruit people from all over the region. He's already adapted to it. Rich was the one that needed the training, not Patrick. But yeah. And that didn't happen by accident, okay? It didn't just so happen that Rich became deputy treasurer. This was the plan. There's always a plan.
Than I am because he lives there.
Okay.
But he was always my point man. He was one of my first contacts up there. So
he wasn't only your first contact, he was your sole vote at convention.
We're always working hand in hand. He's currently a member of their EC. Even before he was on their executive committee, we were always working hand in hand between him and Joey, and to, any issues going on, get them ironed out, help them out with any support that we could.
Gotcha. Awesome. So tell us about the role of state treasurer. What are the actual duties? Not, because a lot of people may not have ever been a treasurer, and they might just think, oh, you just count money, right? Like, you take all the dollar bills and you stuff them in the machine and push a button, and then it counts it. And you do it a second time so you don't get your legs broke. Oh, wait a minute, wrong organization. Sorry about that, folks. But so tell us, what does the treasurer do at the state level?
Now, this is a tough question because I know EL knows the answer to this question. So we'll see if Rich answers correctly.
I wish it was that easy. There is a lot of bookkeeping. There is a lot of accounting. There's a lot of keeping track of, where the money's coming in and where the money's going out. Keeping track, and consolidating all the bank accounts, making sure that at the bottom, all the numbers match and all the numbers add up. Something that Patrick and I have been working on is a couple of separate spreadsheets so that we could better analyze how the state is spending its money, what isn't more effective, and essentially where the money is well spent and where the money is coming in from, so that
there's another responsibility that's not been touched on yet.
That's kind of what I want to focus on as treasurer. I want to look at this as more of a CFO role.
Okay.
A chief financial officer role. So it's a little bit more strategic. I feel like in the past, from what I've seen, the role has been a little bit more of just, let's count the money. Let's make sure that it's, this is here, this is there. And it's very nice to be working with Patrick because we're definitely just, exchanging. I feel like I laid some groundwork, to set him up for success as Region 2 rep. He set up some of the groundwork to set me up for success as treasurer.
Right.
He's absolutely killer with Excel. So he's made a lot of good spreadsheets that we can keep track of the money. Most recently, we had the convention held a fundraiser for a convention theme, and he made a whole spreadsheet for that, so we keep track of where and how the money came in.
Right.
And that's something that I looked at, and I'm like, okay, the money came in was the whole chart kind of went like this. It was like one theme, then another theme, then another theme, then another theme.
Okay.
And then you started getting a lot of activity was towards the end, once you had like 5 or 6 themes. So, and especially towards the tail end. So it's something that I'm thinking, okay, how do we capitalize on that?
Gotcha.
Could we just dump out 6 themes immediately? Like, do I just start talking to a few people and say, hey, you've got a theme? Yeah, push for it. Let's go. Let's try and get that theme on there. Things like that. I want to be a little more strategic, and I want to set us up so that we're spending money smartly. We're spending it
haven't
wisely,
answered the other role
because you're not going to be successful unless you do make some money.
Right.
It takes money to do anything that we want to do here.
Right.
So I want to focus on, where do we allocate our funds in order to, to give us the best chance of success.
So that's another role. Another role of the treasurer is that you're an officer of the party, right? So you have a certain responsibility. They call it a fiduciary responsibility or a fiduciary duty or whatever to the party. So your name is being signed to a lot of that stuff, and you're a member of the EC. And so I don't know. I think you kind of set the tone as far as leadership, as far as, different discussions like strategy, thinking ahead, all that kind of stuff. That's all good. I don't know how to word this. So I'll just blurt what I'm thinking, but you gotta, I don't know. You have a certain air of authority. Imagine that authority within the Libertarian Party. You have a certain air of authority as treasurer, and so to be able to push for certain projects or push certain ideas or things, it carries a little more weight as a treasurer than it would as a region rep. So that's a huge role that you play as well as being a member of the EC. And I don't think that people understand the the ability of that and what effect that has. But,
Gotcha.
it's a
So,
minor thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Doesn't
And I think
matter.
one of the things, and I don't know that it happens or doesn't happen in any of the affiliates.
I guess the point is that it's a leadership role. It's not just the money and how we spend the money and where it's gone and keeping track of it and all of that. You're also looked at as a leader of the party. And so when people have questions, when other treasurers have questions about what to do, or when other members of the party are looking to the things that you're doing, you are a representative of the entire party now, not just Region 2. So that's another big factor, I think, in taking on one of those at-large roles like treasurer.
Or any of the state or even at the LNC level. But I do think it's very important to take a look at the money and say, okay, what are the trends? And I remember a while back, and we're not going to get into it necessarily. It's just kind of, it reminds me of a while back, there was a chart floating around and somebody was like, oh, well, look, since this particular group has come
Mises
into the party,
Caucus.
we're seeing this kind of a trend with the donations and the money. But then you look at a little bit bigger and you start like a couple of years and you start seeing that there's actually even a bigger trend. Right. So sometimes just taking a narrow view of it is insufficient. Sometimes you need a much bigger view. And, and I think it's good that we're going to be, that you're looking to do that and that it's already been done to some extent. So that's pretty neat. Okay. So it sounds like you've been taking a lot of time to really prepare yourself for this role by working with the current person that's in there, taking a look at some of the spreadsheets and stuff like that. So in what ways are you not prepared, and how do you think, or how do you plan to overcome them?
I'm ready for this shit.
In what ways am I not prepared? I'm not the best when it comes to the actual accounting, make sure this money's here, make sure that money's here. The actual bookkeeping, I should say.
Okay.
I'm not the
bad answer.
best at, the spreadsheets and things like that. Now, again, we'd still have that deputy treasurer role that we discussed. And what we're preparing for is to have somebody in that role who is good with that, who can, lend that support. We also have a lot of good people within the party that have been in that treasurer's position.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick being one of them, obviously. But our chair, Stephen Nikela, he was a treasurer previously.
Mm-hmm.
Suzanne Gilmore, who's currently one of our directors at large. She was also a treasurer. And they've been more than gracious whenever, anything happens and lending their support.
That's a tough answer, dude. It hurts because it's like that's not what you want to say. Do not say that on stage at the convention. If you're watching this, do not say that. Do not say that you have a bad time keeping record or you have trouble with the accounting part of it. That's the easy part. Don't say that. That pains me.
Like that. So, I know I have enough people around me that we're going to go ahead and when I don't know an answer, I'm going to know where to go look.
That's
for.
true.
Okay.
That's another thing about being the treasurer, particularly of the state party, that people don't realize. And this was something that we had to convince Patrick of when he ran the first time, because he was concerned that there were going to be some things that he would forget or he wouldn't, he would forget to do or didn't know how to do or didn't know that he should do. At the state level, you are the treasurer, but you also have the financial oversight or whatever it's called committee, the audit committee, I think it might be, whatever it's called. There is a committee that is dedicated to looking over the financials with you and helping you with reporting and all that stuff. So as a treasurer, it's not your job. It is your job. You're the person in charge, but you have a team of people in a committee of which you are a member ex officio. So you have a network, a team of people of perhaps more experienced that will be able to help you with the finer bits of the party. And you can lean on them for that sort of support. So being the treasurer of the state party isn't as complicated as people may sound. Again, there's a lot of resources at the state level that aren't being properly utilized, and that's one of them.
And more important than knowing all the answers, I think the important thing is knowing where to look for the answers when you
Correct.
don't know them, and knowing when to recognize that you don't know the answer and you should go look for one.
That's fair.
I think you're good at that.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. He doesn't know. He knows what he's not good at.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Good.
I would
That's
agree.
something I learned pretty young. That recognize your weaknesses, know when you don't know the answers, and know where to go find them. And
Yeah, for example, Rich is a short man and he can't dunk, and so he may need a stepladder or a hand.
I think I could do that.
Okay, awesome. So what does success look like for you? And let me kind of try to define that a little bit more specifically. Let's say you get elected to treasurer in 6 months, maybe a year. How should the members judge you when they look at you and they say, hey, he's doing good? What measure is it that you're telling us now that we should be on the lookout and maybe hold you accountable if you don't meet it?
Ooh.
Absolutely. And I'm all about accountability. But I think, increased fundraising for sure. And it's talking about those trends that you were talking about. We're still putting together all the spreadsheets and all the budgets happen. But I'm doing that work now so that hopefully we could hit the ground come convention time. But
it's tough when you answer these questions because he's gonna hold you to it. And if he does, I do. Like one of us is going to get you.
This year is going to be an election year. It's the midterms.
Right.
But usually on the off years, it goes down a little bit. And then during the election years, it comes back up. So, it's my goal to calculate exactly how much it has come up over the course of time. What's typical projections increase during the midterm election years. And, I always shoot myself for an additional, 20% on top of that because I'm an overachiever. I like to set some lofty goals for myself.
Let's go for 50.
Even if I don't hit my goal, it's a little bit higher than what anybody else projected, and I'm happy with that.
Gotcha. So we should judge you by whatever goal you say, whatever you set, we should add 20% to it. That's what I heard, right?
That's right. That's right.
I'm going to say, all right, you said $100,000, so I'm going to add 20% to that, and we're going to be like, hey, did you make?
We're going to shoot for 120.
Just kidding.
I'm
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's a
trying to be
no, it's all good.
Break it up a little bit, not be too serious. It's Liberty Dad, not not Liberty Stiff. So, all right, go ahead.
He's a real Liberty dick right now.
No, so that's going to be my overall how I'm going to judge myself.
Okay.
We're going to take a look. Like I said, something I didn't mention earlier. This past year was an absolute record-breaking fundraising year.
Yep.
So I realized, going into it, knowing that, and that in midterm elections, midterm election years, I should say, typically it does increase some. I want to take a look at that and figure out, okay, again, where is the increase going to happen? I want to pinpoint a few certain things. Our goal this next year is to host events, like I said, absolutely across the state. We're shooting for 3 or 4 events aside from our annual business meeting. And, we want to make these absolutely fun fundraising events where, we can later brag about the fact that we were able to bring in X amount of dollars and, we could list off all of our achievements. And I want that for everybody. I want everybody to be able to say, yeah, look, this is what the fundraising committee did. This is what the membership committee did. This is how we grew the party.
Got it. Okay. So you're going to increase the fundraising, maybe even have some more events. Are you in a position now where you can give us something more concrete to look at, or do you need a little bit of time to get elected, get in there, and take a better look at things?
So one of I'll give you an idea of one of the ideas, and it comes from I'll give credit where it's due. It came from Todd Hagopian.
Okay.
He talks about setting up a fundraising backstop.
Okay.
So for the fundraising team, he said, make it whatever $1,000, let's say.
Okay.
And the fundraising team needs $200 to host an event.
Mm-hmm.
We know we have this $1,000 set aside for fundraising. So they take $200, they go and host an event. And let's just say that event, generates $500 worth of income.
Right.
You refill that backstop with the $200 and you take the $300, you put it into, back into the coffers.
Okay.
If they lose money on that event, let's just say they spend the $200 and they don't make any, now you're left with $800, for future events.
Okay.
But I want to make it a little bit easier for people to function within the party and for people to do their job. I'll give you a quote. I'm sure. I mean, you seem like somebody that's into, looking into history. I heard I know you like to talk about Dale Carnegie.
Right.
Einstein actually, it's a quote from him. He said, "Any darn fool can make something complex. It takes a genius to make something simple."
Sure.
Yeah. And I'm not, trying to claim to be a genius or anything like that, but I want to simplify the process for everybody to do their job because it's very difficult. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I'm not the dumbest guy in the world either.
Okay.
And getting through the bylaws, getting through all the, the Constitution and figuring out exactly how to do things, it can be a little tedious and it can be a little bit difficult for the average person. So I just want to make it very simple and, make everybody be able to work to the best of their capability.
Okay.
And like you said, hold people accountable also, because, the more freedom you give somebody, you got to hold them to higher standards of accountability.
Okay. So let's clarify a little bit here. You're saying you said everybody, you said people, you said, I want to make it more simple. What specifically, like which specific people, which specific things are we talking about?
Good question. Don't give him an answer.
You want to make easier for people because these are, so these are things like right now, it's hard. Like I'm looking something concrete so that in
Okay.
6 months, because here's the thing, what happens is a lot of times people will say, I'm going to, and I've done this, I'm going to do, I'm going to increase our revenue. Okay. Everybody's like,
By a dollar?
and so if I
Yeah.
like increase our revenue by $50, like, well, I increased our revenue, but it's not really impressive, right? And
Right.
and I'm not saying that's what you're talking about. So this is why we want something more
Speak in
specific, right?
vagaries.
Like, okay,
Political
I intend to do this,
judo.
so that when I
Let's see
look
it.
later in the future, when party members who are watching or will watch this stream look later, and then let's say you get elected, and they want to come back in 6 months and they want to judge you, the less ambiguity that they have, the better off for you and everyone else, right? So is there anything concrete, very specific, people, whatever it is, can you narrow it down to something more specific?
So treasurer term is 2 years.
Right.
Things that I
Yep.
specifically want to absolutely have, done in the bank, absolutely nailed within the first year. Something that I talked about with Steven was having $10,000 as just reserve funds.
Okay, I think that's doable. It's lofty, but I mean, we could set that money aside right now. So that's an easily achievable goal if they allocate the funds as such.
Okay.
$10,000, basically that's our savings account. We don't touch it. We don't go anywhere near it except for an absolute emergency.
What do we have
I want to
now?
have,
Yeah, what do we have now? Because I think we're about 45.
what's that?
Do you know what we have now?
I don't know the exact number because with convention going on, I know there's money that's tied up there and elsewhere, but I don't know what the exact number is.
Okay.
But I want to make sure that
Roughly.
we have, that set aside. I want to make sure that by that point, I want our fundraising backstop to be $3,000.
Okay.
I want to give them the ability to host some big events where we could fly people in, whether it's Spike Cohen, whether it's a Dave Smith, a Joe Jorgensen, whoever it is. I want them to be able to actually fly somebody in who's an expert at whatever the actual event theme may be.
Okay.
And, attract more people to come out to these events. So within a year's time, maybe we start off with something like $1,000 fundraising backstop. I want that to be closer to $3,000 to $4,000 within a year's time because we've done such a good job fundraising. And there's a couple of other things that I've discussed with Steven that are still very vague as far as having an actual concrete something to offer you right now.
No, you don't have to list it all out. That's fine. I just wanted I was just looking for a couple of things so that because people are going to go vote for you.
Okay, so what did Rich say? $10,000 in the savings account, let's say, of the LPF, and then another $3,000 allocated for fundraising events. Okay.
You hear
All that money, like right now, and maybe this is why Dale was asking about the money, how much money we have on hand, but I believe that we have that money on hand already, and we could allocate it that way right now. And this is what I was talking about before. The LPF has a lot of resources that aren't utilized properly, and one of those being money. And I don't know if there's just a hesitancy. I would imagine that that's what it is, that there's just a hesitancy or an incompetency or whatever it is, that we're not using that money. And as a member of the EC, as an officer of the EC, he could have a greater say in that.
in like 20 days, 25 days, something like that.
Yeah.
And, and so they're going to go vote, and they might vote you, they might vote whoever else is running, or they might vote no, right, and say, hey, I don't like any of the candidates. Let's start over. But I think one of the things that helps tell people or give them an idea of who they should vote for is some of these concrete things so that they can say, all right, he promised this, and, or I don't want to say promise, but, effectively, this was his goal. This is what he wants me to judge him by. And then later we can come back and say, did you accomplish that? Hey, looks like my vote was well placed. Kind of like the way the country should work, but doesn't. But that's a different topic, totally different live stream.
Definitely.
All right, so let's kind of start winding this down a little bit. So leadership. Okay. So one of the things that that I want to point out is that treasurer, in my perception, is not always a role that people immediately think of as a go-to position for general leadership. People tend to think of it as like, managing money, keeping the books clean, filing reports on time, so on and so forth. But it is an officer position. And so what I want to know from you is, what role do you believe the treasurer has in reducing or resolving conflict? And there is no shortage of conflict in our party. So you're welcome to just say, hey, look, here's my generic view of the role that the treasurer has. Or you can say, more specifically, this is the role that I want to play as treasurer in reducing or resolving conflict.
I hadn't thought about, this is the first time I've even thought about the treasurer as, from that side of leadership, as, the duty of resolving or reducing conflict within the party. I know it's something that we've actually talked about before is, you know, reducing the conflict and, you know, being the bigger man and all that stuff. And it's something I've had to work on. You know, my background is, you know, somebody says something to you and you got to be the bigger man and you got to clap back. And, you know,
right. Yeah.
So
it's tough. It's tough. I get it.
It is. And it's something that I've been actively working on myself and, you know, biting my tongue and being more professional. But I think, you know, coming from a leadership position, it's, you know, two things that I always focused on. Number one was empowering people to be better, but also just, you know, setting the example and being the example.
Okay.
So that's something that, like I said, I'm working on, and I'm hoping over the course of this next year, you know, I can do better. Is just being the example of, you know, and I'll use you as an example. You know, you always stay above the fray, and I commend you for that. And I always look at, you know, something's going on, and I look, you know, I'm about to type something, and I look, you know, I see something that you posted, and I think, you know, DL handled it right. You know, let me bite my tongue. Let me not be that guy that I know I want to be. You know,
very much appreciated. So
yeah, man, go in there and say, "Dick, motherfucker."
I don't think people realize this, but I might delete more tweets than I send out. And a lot of it is because a very small portion of them, I'm just like, that's not really funny like I think it is, or it's kind of dumb, or I don't know, it doesn't make sense, or you know something trivial like that, right? No big deal. But there's a good portion of them where I do want to clap back, and I do just want to be like, oh yeah, well let me tell you, and it's been a lot, and you know, because like people see what I tweet, and a lot of people give me compliments, and they're like, oh dude, you know, you handle things so well, and the reality is I come very close to not handling things well, because it can be absolutely frustrating, because people can be so vicious. They can be so, they can interpret your words in the worst way possible. And sometimes it feels like they do on purpose. Like you didn't even try to give me the benefit of the doubt. You just leaped right to the worst possible interpretation. Right. So it's tough. It's tough. I get it.
It's funny. I had never heard the term straw man, you know, like straw manning an argument. I had never heard that term before I actually joined the Libertarian Party. And I've seen more examples of it since I've joined than I ever saw before.
Right.
Yeah. Like you said, people like to put words in your mouth, and they like to just, you know, the least generous interpretation of what you said is, you know, what they go with when they, you know, feel like they need to be opposed to you. And yeah, it's something for sure I definitely need to work on. But.
Yeah. And, you know, honestly, I think it's something that everybody needs to work on. So, you know, because I see a lot, and I see people that I've met people in person, you know, and talk with them. And I'm like, oh, you're a pretty decent person. And this goes for like all sides, right? This isn't limited to any particular group or faction or whatnot, but I've met a lot of people. And then I see them online, and I'm like, why are you doing that? Like, that's not the person that, you know, some of them have been in my home, right? Not, you know, like stayed, you know, come over, like I've had libertarians who are traveling sometimes, and they'll stay overnight, and, you know, we got a spare room or whatever. And I'm like, why are you doing this? Because that's not the person that I had a great conversation with. You know,
right.
And, you know, or maybe I've met them at Pork Fest or at a convention or what have you. And I've had a lot of great conversations with people. And then, you know, they seem to lose it on the internet. I had a friend a long time ago. She was a hardcore feminist. Okay. She was not a libertarian at all. Hardcore feminist. Okay. But we were good friends. And I showed up to a party one night, and she said, this exact words. She said, hey, there's awesome, cool DL, not internet asshole DL. Right. Like, cause at the time, and this is less than 10 years ago. Well, no, maybe right about 10 years ago, 10, 11, 12, something like that. But so at this time, I actually was kind of being, you know, and I was like trying to own people, like, oh, I got you, you know, I'm going to say this one thing, and bam, you could be in tears, like, dang, I can't believe he's so smart and outwitted me. You know, I was like, I was that guy. Right. And, but then I just started realizing it wasn't accomplishing what I wanted, which was people to change their views or to respect me more and say, you know what, I disagree with you, but you're making an interesting point, and I'm going to have to at least give that some consideration, right? So it wasn't giving me that. So yeah, no, I get you. And I encourage you to keep trying. You know, use that draft tweet button, use it. You're ready to fire out a tweet, type it up. I think, how does it work? You go to delete it. It says, do you want to save it as a draft? Save it as a draft.
Save it,
Come back like an hour or two, maybe even next day. It happens to me all the time. Open it up and look at it. And sometimes you're like, I don't think it's as valuable as I thought. And then sometimes you're like, wow, I'm glad I didn't send that, because that was pretty rough, and it wasn't going to go anywhere good, right? So yeah, I encourage you. All right, last question. This question is going to be my fun question, okay? So I don't know about you, but I've been in interviews quite a few interviews, and a lot of them they'll ask you some, what seems like a really key, weird, just kind of like what the heck kind of a question, right? So I decided to do that. Now the general reason is just to see how people can quickly think on their feet and give you a good answer, and whatever, all that good stuff.
Giving you time.
I'm just kind of doing it for fun. So I'm not really going to judge you by this. Other people, I can't vouch for them. They might. This
I'm going to judge you so hard.
Might tank your campaign. Okay. I don't know. It won't for me, but I can't promise for anybody else. So, if you were a chicken that had to cross a road,
oh boy,
and choose only one, would you carry an AR-15 or a 9mm?
AR-15.
All right. Why?
It's no matter what you need to get accomplished. I mean, you can get an AR-15 on a shorter platform or a longer platform.
Okay.
I'm just a fan of rifle/carbine shooting, and it's going to be a lot more versatile to get any job done versus a 9mm. A 9mm is more limited in the jobs that it could get done.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, that was just for fun, a little bit of fun. So before we close out, let's go ahead and give you the final word. Tell us, where people can find you, if you've got like a website or if you've got a Facebook page or whatever you got going on. Let people know. Kind of.
If you don't plug the Swampcast, I'm gonna get
you. If you're looking for me online, I got a Facebook. It's just Richard Perez. Nothing exciting. I have Instagram, Richie Roma 72. Mostly political posts, and Twitter's just a cesspool, and I suggest everybody to stay away from there.
Right.
But if you're gonna follow me on Twitter and you, it's at maybe Richie Roma, RICHIE ROMA. You can find me there. No websites or anything like that, not yet, at least.
Okay. Any final words for your run for treasurer?
Not really. I think I think we talked about more than what I expected to talk about.
Okay.
I knew you weren't going to take it easy on me, but you definitely had me thinking, and you had me on my toes. So I think we went over more than what I expected that we were going to go over throughout the interview. So commend you for that.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. And I hope everybody that's watching got something that make sure you connect with them if you're not connected. Ask him even more tough questions if you can think of one that I didn't. And with that, we are going to go ahead and close out. That's all for this episode. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to hit that and connect with me at LibertyDad on Facebook, LibertyDadPod on Twitter, or send me an email to LibertyDadPodcast@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. To catch Liberty Dad episodes when they air, head over to Facebook.com/Free Speech Media, where the weekly episode airs Monday night at 8 p.m. And while you're there, be sure to check out the other Free Speech Media shows.
I am updating
for an audio format.
the thumbnail.
Head on over to LibertyDad.com or just search for Liberty Dad, all one word, on your favorite podcast app. Remember, if you're a champion of liberty, your business is people and your product is liberty. Have a great week. Catch you next time, and I'm out.
All right. Cool. Let me give my synopsis of this. I really where is the restream button? Do I have it? There it is. Okay. Let me pull out of this here. Look, we'll go into Cinema View, and then we will hide this because that will keep me in the middle there. All right. So my review of Richard Perez appearance on DL Cummings' Liberty Dad podcast. All right. So that's how I'm going to reframe all this because I want it to be more accurate. Anyway, I think Rich did fairly well. There were a couple of things in there that I think he could have answered better or differently or whatever. And that's apparent, right? That's going to be with any interview. Specifically, I think the worst answer he gave was the one about, he's not really good at the accounting aspect of being treasurer. That hurt a lot because that is like the primary goal. And not only is it the primary goal, it should be one of the easier things to do. So this, I really think where this comes from though, is people put this expectation of being treasurer in like such high regard that it's going to be super difficult. I don't think it's as difficult as people imagine it to be. And I think this is a case of that. I think that he knows it's a big responsibility and he might think it's more complicated than it actually is. And maybe this is just because he's a boomer, because Rich is an old man who doesn't understand technology. Maybe that's what it is. But it's not, from what Patrick has explained to me, it's really not that complicated. And I do think that he made a good point there, that Patrick has developed the framework necessary to make this an easy transition. that will make this smoother for him going forward. And I think that Rich has done the same thing for Patrick. And I think just Patrick being involved with the EC generally and having an idea of the certain types of motions that come up and those sorts of things can help him be a successful region rep when he decides to run for that. Anyway, overall, I think the interview was really, really good. The criticisms of the interviewer, I've made those already. Don't give them the answer, DL. If you want it to be a tough question, don't provide them an escape route. Don't open the exit hatch, because that will always be the answer that the person will give. And I think that the interview might have gone a little less good for Rich, but I think Rich is a good candidate. So I don't think that there's anything. I don't want to say that. I was going to say I don't think there's anything he could have said that would have made me not like him, but because I like Rich. He's a friend. He's a fellow member of the Swampcast network, of the Swampcast show. He's been on my show. I like Rich, and I think he's going to make a great treasurer, because I don't think the treasurer is all that complicated, but also because Rich is a leader. And that's really what that position comes down to, is leadership. And maybe that's how I'll start off the next one that I end up doing, is what I think the position is and should be, and then we can go into those interviews. But overall, I think Rich did pretty good. Again, a couple things that maybe I would have said differently or phrased differently. I definitely wouldn't have said that I have a trouble. That's going to be my biggest criticism of this, and I'm going to talk to him about that and make sure he doesn't say that in his speech. But yeah, I think that is overall, I think it was a good interview, and I'm looking forward to doing more of these, because again, I think that the LPF is a big enough organization that it warrants its own coverage, and I think I'm one of the more in touch people, one of the more connected people who can make this happen. What's happening, and I want the organization to move in a positive direction. That's where we're at. Thank you for joining me for the last hour. It was an experimental stream, and I'm sure the internet. Until next time, thanks for watching.